Right, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30. Tonight is Monday, August 9th, 2021. This is the August meeting of the Budget Committee. Thank you all for being here. The sign-up sheet is here in the front. I've signed up in already, everyone who's here. So we're good. Anyone new will have to sign in. The first item on our agenda, as always, is public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to roll call here. Alderwoman Malone Marshall is not here. Alderman O'Brien here. Alderman Ozinga.
Present.
Alderman Marzak.
Present.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Brown.
Here.
We have 6 present and a quorum. Thank you all. First item is the financial statement review. Elizabeth handed out our packet here. Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. It is the month where we finally look at some numbers, which is great. Outside of a budget, we'll compare against the budget, which is always exciting to do. I want to go ahead and turn to page 3. I had a lot of reformatting. A couple pages are going to look similar but look a little bit different, and I think that's mostly because I reformatted some items. With the sales tax analysis on page 3, I thought it was really important that we keep 2018 through 2019 on here for comparison purposes. Usually we just leave the 3 years up, but I thought, I think we should leave 4 still. It's going to make it a little bit smaller, but I made the expenditures a little bit bigger so we can see those more easily. So basically here you can see that the months you've not seen, of course, would be in the columns 2021, 2022 for the fiscal year that we're currently in. The 4th column over of that is just the regular sales tax. You can see that in May, what was collected, that of course gets accrued back because it's February, and then March also gets accrued back. When in the column there, next to the month that's in caps, it says July, but in parentheses it says April. That's when our people would have taken them. That's when our people, yes, would have taken the money over the counter. The state counts that as May, though. So because the state counts it as May, that is the first month that goes into the current fiscal year. So with the sales tax, we always have to count back 3 months and think about what are we talking about. Is it when the dollars got exchanged at the vendor, or is it when the state classifies it, or is it when we receive the money? This has been the age-old sales tax situation. But the first 2 of that column always get accrued back. So they're in italic, they're italicized there for you. So you can see on the regular sales tax, we, like the county has talked about in different meetings that they have had, we know that we've had a really good run here and some stronger sales tax than what we had been seeing. Coming out of COVID, though, it's still kind of hard to know what's going to be the new normal, but I do think that these trends are solid, and I think that they are positive for our future, as I know the county has believed as well. So if you go over then 4 columns from there, the very last column on the right-hand side of the page, you can see the 2 months at the top there, the 398 and the 495 that get accrued back to last fiscal year. And then you can see the first one that gets recorded in this year, which is that $444,417. Then at the bottom, I just updated all of those formulas to properly state what they say. In that last box labeled May 2020 through April 2021, you can see that the sales tax over the last rolling 12 months and then the final for the fiscal year are the same number because we're glancing at the same exact period for this month. That 305 that was received in July, remember I list that on there for your all's tracking benefit, but of course right now that number actually isn't actuals, but that number is not as meaningful as we were looking at really what closed out our fiscal year at this point in time. So we will start a new box. I will do a fiscal, obviously 21-22 box here soon, and we'll start looking at those averages too. But all the months on the side here are the 33 months since we did the inception of the sales tax with the home rule. 32 months if you take out that January of 2019 when we had the outlier month. As those of you who were here recall, we had a month with a large adjustment that we've always kind of taken out to be able to compare apples to apples. And then you can see what the home rule average was for the what would be the previous fiscal year at that $371,384.94. Any questions on sales tax for this fiscal year?
More of a comment, just it's interesting for June and July, April and March numbers, though, the highest we've seen in the last few years for that particular month. So that's really positive.
It's absolutely excellent. And it's been interesting. I know we talked about this come budget because I gave that sheet where we looked at how close we actually got to our estimates with COVID involved. And we talked about that sheet and everything with it. But also I know with the current articles, I got caught up after my brief time away, and I was reading again about the county at their meetings talking about this. And I know I've had a separate conversation with Chairman Wheeler about this subject. And I have not gone over the detailed reports that are privy to certain signed members of the city. The mayor would be one of those people. We can look at the detail, but it is proprietary. So we cannot divulge the details of that report as we've talked about before, but maybe perhaps in those details, when we get those, there will be a clue as to why, and maybe it's something that we can kind of help continue. But quite honestly, in the past, when we've seen these little perks up, when we've seen these trends up, we haven't always been able to attribute it to one singular thing.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 4, this is where we look at the major revenues that we look at it on a monthly basis. Same situation. I did go ahead and remove fiscal 18s. We do only look at 4 years worth in this analysis. And you can see the income tax started to, in May of this year, get back to kind of what its normal pattern is. As you might recall, in the year of COVID, everyone's income taxes were lawfully delayed, if you wish to, and that really affected our money as it came in because people were not filing. Some couldn't even get into their accountants to file because of COVID and such. So I feel this year the numbers start to look a lot more like fiscal 20's numbers did, with a big surge in May, a pretty decent surge. We still had a decent surge in June this year, which was good to see, and then July is still high. So really June and July are trending much, much higher than standard, but May kind of was on the comeback, which I was glad to see. Use tax continues to be strong and steady. For these months in here, this May, June, and July, very strong compared, pretty much a little bit stronger than last year, but much stronger than previous years. Replacement tax, you can see we had 2 distributions. This continues to be very strong, and we made adjustments for that in the budget. As you remember, we talked about that, and I was always glad to see when numbers come in the way that you have projected them. Telecommunications tax, of course, is the other story. It's being strong in its new way, not the numbers of old that we were used to, but hanging out around $37,000, $38,000 per month. That's the new trend with that number, and we made adjustments for that as well in the budget. And then page 5 is the gas, electric, and water. I would say gas and electric are trending just as normally as they do. We have no control over that anyway. That's mostly weather-driven, as we know, and people's choice-driven. How warm do they want their homes? How cool do they want their homes? But the water is kind of starting to stay around that $40,000 average, which is just a wee bit higher than what we've seen. So I was pleased to see that. I suspect that could be a little bit of a summer thing. I do believe that COVID made some people make some different choices. I personally know more people with pools and such than I've ever known in the past. So I do believe that we're seeing a little bit of an uptick. Plus, I think too, I believe people are still at home a little bit more than maybe what they have been in the past. I have no concrete evidence for that increase, but would like to share some thoughts I've had about that. Any questions on those summary pages before we go into the detail? Okay, seeing none. Going to page 6, which is the revenue analysis. This is every single ledger line item for our revenues that are in the general fund. It's pretty much identically the same as before. Obviously, the new budget has been dropped in. So the budget books that you were handed tonight, this is online if your constituents are interested. This is in budget format online. So you like a magazine, you hit the page and it flips over online. So you can always share that with anybody who is interested that way. But I do still like to give you old school, a copy to touch and feel, and that's just me being older for my age than I am, but I like to do that, so you guys have those copies now. But basically, every single number that's in here is now on these pieces of paper for us to review monthly. We are already through the end of July at the 3-month mark, which is unbelievable that we're that far into the fiscal year already, which would mean we're at the 25% mark, to use a general number to look at for analysis. There's no way that that's ever going to hit every line item on, perfectly. We know that, unless it's something that's amortized monthly. But we do kind of like to look at that number to see where we're at. The very first 3 or 4 items, are our property tax numbers, and those will never hit those percentages because they come in as they come in. We know that we received that first installment of property taxes about the middle of July, and those are the numbers here that you're looking at. Obviously came in very strong, just as I have heard from Treasurer Africano regarding this. We received, you can see on the right-hand column there, 53, almost 54% of our general taxes, 55 of road and bridge, and then the same with almost a 54% of police and fire pension. Those dollars have been allocated already to the police and fire funds. They receive that money, it comes to the city, and we make sure to get that turned over to them immediately. And we did that, of course, as we usually do. Beneath those numbers, just real quick though, for those of you who are new, we will receive a small distribution in the month of August. It's kind of a smaller amount. And then of course, just as we pay as citizens, we will see that much larger distribution in that September timeframe. And then we'll see one other smaller one, and then we'll have in October-ish, early November, and then we'll have the final in early December. And that's kind of how the 5 times of money come to us through property taxes. Similar to how you pay them yourself, but not exactly, so I always like to go over that. And then on below those property tax numbers, you see all the numbers we just spoke about, the replacement sales, local use, state income tax, but then also in addition to those items, you see the cannabis excise tax. You can see that came in at $3,200 for the month of July. That is a little bit more than we've been used to seeing there. We've been seeing about $2,000, $2,200, so that was a nice little surge. I believe that that's going to continue to surge, and we know that people are getting lots of money still, especially if they have children, put back in their pockets. How they choose to spend it, I cannot control, but I do believe we will see a surge on this line. Trending a little bit higher than budget right now. And then you have the utility taxes we spoke of, telecommunications, and then the public safety tax. As you know, that comes from the bills, the decision that was made back in 2014, and it is perfectly trending at this point in time. Moving on to licenses. Obviously, this is the first time we've looked at these. Liquor licenses look really low, but do remember that all gets accrued back to the last fiscal year. So some of the finale of that, we had pretty strong numbers in April, but then the finale of the liquor licenses all gets accrued back to the previous year. So what has flowed through this year, by the time I do my final entry, you may not even see some of this numbers, because I would suspect that a lot of that is money that should be accounted for prior. The other licenses is very strong right now. Motor vehicle sticker, that would be everything that we've done with the vehicle stickers thus far through the end of July. So we've got some work to do. The tickets have been really coming in. I know Emma in the front office has been very, very busy with tickets of people. One ticket usually, as we know, and police will tell you, I know Chief would tell you this, if there's one ticket on a car in a neighborhood, usually 3 other people come in to buy stickers. So there is a larger effect than just that one ticket that happens. I will hear people even from my office saying, well, I saw my neighbor had one, I think I forgot this year, or I forgot, or I didn't come and get it. They come in because they see that ticket and they know enforcement's occurring. So there is a larger effect than just a singular ticket that happens, and we're in the midst of that right now. Even you can see just in July bringing in $46,000. That's past the surge point, so that's a pretty good sum to be bringing in. Rental licenses are strong. We've had lots of conversation. We're going to have a lot more conversation on this subject, but they're still doing very well this year. And business licenses, obviously, are still rolling in and being paid for and are very strong at this point in time. Moving into fees, the franchise fee for cable, we did not get it recorded in the month of July, but we did just get an installment, I believe, last week. I'm going to say it was $67,000, I believe, from Comcast. So you will see that in the August financials for sure. That comes in quarterly, and it's an on and off quarter, so that's why it's harder to remember. But I did see that we got the advice regarding that. amount. The franchise fee other, remember that $17,708 is from MC Squared, the agreement that we entered into with our electric aggregation. There's a community benefit that is a piece of that. And so that is where that's being accounted for separately this year. Last year it was blended into franchise fees. This year we have it on its own line, on the other line, so we can track that. Going on down, ambulance fees, we're already at $369,000 for the year, so just a little bit below, but that's only because of the timing difference with date of service. Remember, for the first at least 2 months of this fiscal year, almost every date of service is 4/30 and before, so all that money gets accrued back. So this is a very strong number, because really and truly, I bet we've only been paid for about a month and a half, didn't you say? Chief, maybe pushing 2 months now, maybe, I doubt it. Yeah, probably a month and a half. So anyway, that's a very strong number. Building permits doing well on trending properly. Contractor license is a bit higher, which makes sense. We all know more work happens in the summers. Overweight's trending well, and then live scan comes in as it does. And this year I've obviously got to fix a percentage issue over there in my column. I apologize for that, because we have brought in money against a budget. Last year zoning fees did not have a budget, so I believe that that's missing a formula there on the percentage side, so I have marked that for next month. Grants, we've received nothing, and or nothing has been recorded. We have been busy trying to get the audit wrapped up and get work papers into the auditors. So there could be some money that possibly was received. A lot of times grants come through ACH, so we catch that in our reconciliations. So if there's a big change next month, I will let you know what the situation was with that. But I don't remember Tammy telling me anything has come in. Top of page 7, service charges. You can see we've had some money trickle in for the smoke detector service charge. That's doing very well, above the 25%. Going on down, we did receive a Karma pilot fee for the 1 quarter, so we have $25,000 collected for that. Moving into fines, this category has some surges that are really strong. Penalties and adjudication fines are really kind of breaking the budget right now with where they're at. I know they've been very, very busy with the work there and making sure that there's compliance there. And then also, obviously, we've just started with the tickets for vehicle stickers at the end, that $3,700, that'll continue to grow as those tickets come in. Really, that's about, 2 weeks or so, Chief Passwater? We were ticketing 2.5 weeks of July? Yeah. So really, that's not even a full month at that $3,700. Code liens, very, very strong at 36% for the year so far. Going down to category 37, this is kind of our miscellaneous items. You will see a couple things I want to point out. One, that charitable games tax for what was given to us in the month of July is an all-time high. That $67,995.22 is one of the largest numbers we have ever seen. Here for sure, it's trending right on point for the year. And then also wanted to point out here on item 400, if you see that on the left-hand side, it says 400 ARPA reimbursement. There is that $1,595,000 that we talked about in this very room at this very meeting a couple of months back. That money that we believe the city, the general fund, is due from the ARPA money under all of the rules that the ARPA money has set out for us. I placed it there because I believe, although it is going to be treated like a grant when it comes to compliance and reporting and all of that, it won't be like that for the general fund, because we're just seeking a portion of it to make us whole for items that we were missing. So I think it's better served just to be in this category and be sitting there as a reimbursement. And as we draw down on that money for us as we need to, according to the plan that we set in this room, then you will see that number grow. You know, we've taken 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, whatever that is. That'll be the line item that you can see that on. I didn't feel it was proper to put it under grants, because in the way the general fund's using it, it's not a grant. It's our portion. So now, at an ARPA meeting in the future, we'll talk more about the accounting for that, separation that we're going to do for that. Can do that maybe in the ARPA section of the meeting tonight even. That kind of has a different story. But here, I believe this is the proper story for it. Yeah, Alderman?
Elizabeth, and maybe we haven't got down that far. Item 997, salary reimbursement. Is that buyouts for people that...
Salary reimbursements is just that sometimes, we have different, mostly in public safety and such, that have different things that happen, and we get reimbursements for those over the course of time. So I will definitely, though, it's a little odd to me too, to make sure that I go back and check all my budgeting notes to see what that is comprised of. I will go back and do that for next meeting. So I have a little stronger answer for you. Any other questions on revenues? Bottom line here, you can see we're at exactly almost 25.08%. For a bunch of different reasons. Those will make more sense as the time goes along. If you take out the home rule sales tax, which of course is owed by ordinance to the police and fire funds, then we're at 23.68%, which is still a super strong number, as many of our main revenues are accrued back those first couple months of the year. All right, going to page 8. Your eyes are not deceiving you. It does look bigger. It is bigger. I was playing with it, and some compatibility mode in Excel was giving me fits today. So this is the best I can present to you tonight. The numbers are accurate, that I promise. The format's a little different. But anyways, we look at this, same situation, of course. We're at 3 months at 25% of the year being used. The new budget is dropped in there, just like we talked about in the revenues. So we have comparison, and we can look at items here. With really most of the categories, the entire first page, I don't really have a lot to share. Everything seems very normal. I was going to bring note to 2 items on the executive department, which is the mayor's department. The contractual services was for an employee in his office that was on a contractual basis until a decision was made to make permanent, which then moves that employee to the salary line item. So that is looking like it's trending high. It is not. It is over. So it will be at 99.98% the rest of the year. So it's perfectly budgeted for this year. Going on down below, in Police and Fire Commission, they have used some contractual services already. We have budgeted extra money here, as we know we have a desperation of hiring that needs to happen in both police and fire. Lots of retirements. A lot. We need people, and we know that, and we're working on that as we speak. So we bumped this budget up. If contractual services is not quite enough, we'll work with that. They may not run a full 7,000 in legal notices, and as you all know, I might from time to time bring a concern like that to this meeting, and within the same category, we can move dollars around. I cannot add without council approval and such, but I could take 2,000 from legal notices and put that in consultant if need be, as long as that total of 36,175 stays the same. It has to stay the same. That's the key. But I always come here before we make those decisions, and we always talk about that. Police and Fire Commission is just one of those things where I don't always walk in step with what their needs are, but I was certainly clear that their needs were more because that's what the city needed. So I believe that we're going to be okay in that category. Going to page 9, the Human Resources budget, there's nothing there whatsoever that there's to talk about. Salary, and then of course we did have a buyout for the former director, small buyout. City Clerk's office, same situation. There's nothing on that radar. Everything is trending very, very well and as planned. Comptroller's office, everything is pretty much on trend as we would think, with the exception of 2 items. Vehicle sticker supplies, as you can imagine, we burn through most of that budget by the time we sit down here in July, because that is for the vehicle sticker run that we just had. And also postage is the same situation, is that when we mail those out, we go through a tremendous amount of postage to get that accomplished. So those items are higher in my department right now. Computer department looks good. Top of page 10, legal, trending very well so far this year to date. We do have, with legal contractual, we do have some bills in here, that's line 523, that has some items that of course would have some leftover from the former lawyers that we worked with and now the current firm that we're working with. That's pretty standard, that we're getting bills briefly from 2 places because there's that transition. And typically speaking, attorneys bill a little bit slow. So we are just now basically getting those bills in and getting those recorded, but still looking very good year to date. Adjudication looks really good at that 15.09%. Planning is good at 9.6%. Moving into police then, toward the bottom of page 10, we did have Salaries look really good, but remember, we do have a lot in there for some future buyouts, some buyouts that we did have already. They're included within those numbers. Overtime's holding its own, as in we did in police and fire. We have bumped those overtime budgets pretty good as we approved because of our situation. Really not different than a lot of other places, but we knew that we needed to be prudent there and budget overtime a little bit more strongly than we have in the past, but it's trending very well right now. We did have a big surge in office supplies and police, and I do apologize. I just got back. Today was my first day back in the office, and as you can imagine, there's a lot going on. I have one question for Chief Passwater, and I have a situation with Chief LaRoche that I should have addressed with both of them prior. It's not their fault, but I want to go through some detail. I already spoke with Chief LaRoche about it, but Chief Passwater, we need to probably look at that. I'm scared something got misbooked, so I'll...
Just put it wrong.
Yeah, I'll pull the detail and we can look at that. It's just odd that they're never that high, so I just feel strongly that perhaps we have something that's just needs to be, reallocated to the proper line item. No big deal. It would have been a proper expense, just maybe not the right line item. Going on down though, we did spend some in clothing allowance. Travel and training is over right now, but this is that same situation. If this was a needful conference and such that I know that they were booking, then all we would need to do is move some from another line item that they aren't going to need the full amount from to make that whole. I'm not worried about $3,000 in the police budget. That's very easily found, so we can make those adjustments. And usually the first couple of months, once we're looking at a budget, we make a couple of tweaks like that, and then usually we have something we can live with the rest of the year. Top of page 11 brings no other surprises and such. So police 31, which is their major piece of their department, is just at 20.20%. Police training looks good. Police records looks high, and the reason for that being right now is that we did have a retirement, as you know, it was in the paper with Val. So her buyout and such is included in that number. For the month of July, as that's when it was paid. So it looks like it is heavy now, but that will ease itself as time goes on, and that was accounted for. Police communications, we had a credit that was given right now, and then we have made 2 payments to joint dispatch, leaving that department a little bit over right now, mostly because, 525 communication services, we had a big payout to the county for that $54,105.60 was a major piece of that, as that was approved a few meetings ago. So I just want to bring attention to that. We may have to look at that. I'm not going to panic about that yet, but something else we probably should look at. And then in police pension, you can see here in that category, a couple items have been spent, nothing over budget, and then the police pension contribution, that is identical to the penny, what we received in from the county, of course, then gets turned back over to the police pension fund, and that's where we account for that at. School crossing guards had a couple of payrolls, obviously in May and early June, that were accounted for here, and then they're on a little bit of a break until we get going here very quickly in the next couple weeks. Moving into fire, the situation I explained to Chief LaRoche tonight is not his fault. I actually applaud him. When we sat down with budget, he wanted to make sure that every person that was in every category was identical to the function that was being done. So I'll give you an example. We had somebody that was a captain that's been inside of administration for years. This person is no different than any other captain. It's one of our great captains, but that function that employee does for us doesn't match any administrative function. And so when Chief LaRoche was looking at his budget, he said, well, why is this person in here? And I said, Chief, I don't really have a good answer for you other than we've always had one captain like this inside of the administration budget. And he said, well, I don't think that's accurate to the duties that person's doing. I want them to be in the fire, budget. I want them to be, where the rest of the employees are housed, because that's what that employee does. It runs, he runs a crew. So we worked at moving those around. So we did the budget like that, and I really liked the way that his thought that went into it. However, there's always the delay then of we're making this decision late May, June, and we've already paid some payrolls, right? And those have the old ledger number. So this captain still has this administrative ledger number, but yet this captain should not be paid there, and this captain's budget is not there. It's in 45, which is the fire, budget. So we have a few manual entries that have to be made. So he's got some lines right now in salaries that look wonky. They will not for much longer. And I just wanted to say that. It has nothing to do, his budgeting was spot on. but we need to get our ledger caught up with the decision that was made, and we will do that here shortly, but we've had some other priorities going on. So I just wanted to explain that on his behalf. This is not his situation. It is a ledger situation with the Paycor system that we will certainly get cleaned up. So we've got 3 months to get cleaned up now, 3 actually and a half, because this August one still was on the old. We'll get those cleaned up, and by the time we meet again, we'll have that all fixed up for everybody. Just wanted to explain that. Administration, though, that salary 401, I'm going to look at that closely. I believe that that's Chief Schultz buyout for when, not all of it, of course, but a portion of it is in that line item, and we will look and see how that was budgeted, but that's what's driving that overage there. Everything else looks really good. Equipment maintenance and repairs is a little high. Same situations we talked about in police. You know, if we have something that's trending higher, we need to make a small tweak here and there, we certainly can do those things, and I will certainly bring that back to this committee if we decide that that's what we'd like to do. Fire training looks great right now. Same situation here, though. Right now, there's a salary there. He has a person there, but the ledger's not been shifted for that person. So pretty soon here, those zeros that happened in the month of July will turn into other numbers there for sure. So just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Fire alarm contractual trending well. The Bureau trending very well on both fronts, both on overtime and on salaries. I believe we have those salaries proper with the right people in the system and everything, so that's why that looks really good. Underneath firefighting force, you can see salaries look strong. Overtime is heavy. We know it's heavy. Many of you sit in those public safety meetings with Chief LaRoche, and you know what's been going on there with having some people out due to injury, and then also just being lower. And I think we had at least one employee terminate and take another position. So just some things that have been unexpected, and it's summertime. So, but I do believe that overtime number is strong. I know the plans to get it kind of the ship righted, you know, toward the end of this calendar year are in place and being worked on right now. And so, you know, 41% without a plan would make me nervous. 41% with a plan does not make me nervous. Bottom of page 12 still looks good. Top of page 13, the whole department, though, is still at only 21.28%. Fire emergency services, almost the identical situation. Salaries look dynamite. Overtime is high. I'm not going to give that rationale again. It's the same situation. Obviously, it's the same department. Everything else, a couple items, you know, trending right on budget, but that's perfectly fine. Same situation with the fire pension contribution under 47,539. Every penny that was given to us from property taxes is being sent back to the pension. Code is trending very well. They are obviously in the midst of hiring some folks, so they will be lagging a wee bit with their budget right now. They'll be looking stronger in salaries than they will be as time goes on, because we will get those folks hired. So they're at 18.72% for property maintenance. And building safety, they're even a lower percentage at 13.95. Same situation with the salaries and getting some new employees in the door. Animal control is very well under control, which is good. Community promotions, there's just a couple things here I want to highlight. Under salaries, I thought that I budgeted that perfectly, but it looks like I'm $500 off or so. That would have been the completion of a former employee that was paid in that department. So I will look at that and see what we want to do about that. That would be solely on my shoulders, because I looked that stuff up, so I will look into that. Then we did pay dues and memberships. As you recall, that was the amount for the National League of Cities that typically gets paid from this department, a membership that we've been involved in for several years now. Events and promotions, that line item houses typically two major things, Merchant Street and fireworks, and this year is no different. Obviously, that lends itself to be a higher percentage for longer during the year, and then it weans itself out as the year goes on. So that's why that department looks higher. We always spend the majority of this money by the time July is done. And then in city general costs, 91, we did pay a little bit of some liability insurance. You can see year to date, we've paid a portion of that, about 40% or so. There are some reimbursements that come into that from the ESU, from CDA, and from the library. Those offset some amounts there. I did not take a look to see how many offsets have occurred yet this year. Group health, you can see that we spent that $380,000 so far for employer costs on the insurance. Workers' compensation, we made a payment. We are getting ready, I believe, for your approval next week. The final installment will be on there for the workers' compensation for this year. The billing was really different with that. I had them kind of spread a few payments out while we were in the non-property tax era, I will say. We don't collect money in the winter and the spring. And I said, we would be able to make that final payment then sometime after July. And they adhered to that and worked with us. So that final payment will be coming up. And it's almost, I believe, $250,000. And then that will be paid for the year until we go into renewal again in December, which is quickly approaching. We paid some street lights as well, had a little bit of sales tax reimbursement, you can see year to date. The other thing that, since it happened in a month since we weren't together, the amount that we paid to the Metro, it was paid, you can see it in the column there, it's line 565, transit system support. That obviously is paid one time per year, so it's at 100%, but it is already completed for this year. We had some other expenses. We had some sales tax reimbursements that were paid out. A little bit of tax legal matters was paid out there, completed now, and some construction contractual. And then going on down to the library reimbursement and CDA, those amounts there, the $930, $940, are what are owed currently. The library has already paid for 1 month of the year, so they've paid for the month of May. They only owe for June and July, and CDA still owes for some from last year, and then also some, obviously, all the amounts for this year. So it's all said and done with expenses. We're at 24.33% year to date, and I'm very pleased with that. Any questions?
So we're 25% through the year, good results so far. Anyone have questions for Elizabeth at this point? Okay, thank you. Larry, you go.
I don't know if I should bring this up under Alderman's concern, but I'm going to bring it up now. We had public safety the other night, and I was just absolutely floored. The fire department had 1,845 hours overtime for the month of July, and that equated to $88,598 for 30 days. The month before that, you had 1,045 hours overtime. That equated to $48,318. Well, if we look at our budget here, we're budgeting $200,000 for overtime for the entire year, and those 2 months calculate to $137,000 in 2 months. Now, I'm not a fireman. I don't know how it works over there, but we have to do something. There have to be some adjustments made. Our taxpayers, if they saw this kind of money being spent on overtime for 30 days, they would just go crazy. Something's got to be done here. Now, I'd like to speak with Chief LaRoche. I don't know if now is the time to discuss it at length, but we are stewards of the taxpayers' money here, and this is wrong. $88,000 in 30 days. Is anybody else not alarmed by this? I couldn't believe it when I saw that overtime the other day. I guess right now that's all I have to say, but we need to look at it. We need to do something. We need to make adjustments. If we have to close down fire stations temporarily till we get the manpower up, if we have to let Riverside and St. Mary's start running some of our ambulance calls, instead of us running 2 ambulances on overtime, give some of that work to Riverside or St. Mary's. And we have to look at the contracts. I know there's stuff in the contracts with minimum staffing and things like that. Those are 3 things as I sit here and I talk about this. Those are absolutely 3 things that we have to look at. We have to cut back on this overtime.
The only thing I would add to that, Alderman, is that when we do have injuries, we have very little control over those outcomes. We work our protocols. Carolyn is excellent. Chief LaRoche is excellent. But when those happen, and things like that happen in the summertime when we already know we're short in the summer typically because we got to work vacations normally, and you know that from all the years you've been on here. But then also, we have this year, we're short on people going into it because of retirements and situations. And then we have several injuries in that department right now. So unfortunately, it leaves us with shifts that have to be filled and a result like you just mentioned, of huge numbers. Summer's always the worst, as you remember. It's always worse. This is a huge number, for sure. I would say it's alarming. I don't think that's a word that I'm scared to use. I do believe that it is alarming, but I do believe that we can know what the reasons are. It's not that it's calculated, I guess I would say, because I know what the reasons are, and, I don't run a fire department either. I don't know all the needs of a fire department, but I know the why. I know why it's happening, when we're down as many people as we're down right now. So that's just all I would add to that.
Alderman, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about our overtime. I'm alarmed too. When I seen that number, actually I projected that it was going to be a substantially high number back in June. I met with the mayor and Elizabeth prior to that, and I explained to him that we should budget more money for the overtime because we knew we were going to have a bad month. And that's what we did. We actually budgeted, I believe it was $273,000 for our overtime for the year. So I'm watching the trends, and I'm trying to do the best I can with what we have, but we have contractual obligations, which, I'm sure as a former police officer, how we handle that. But like I said, I would be happy to answer any questions anybody has. My phone's always on, and I'm happy to meet with you.
I would like to sit down and talk to you about it, and I understand yes, contractually, we're mandated to do certain things. But when we negotiate the next contract, those are the kind of things we need to look at. And maybe make adjustments in the contract. I would like to sit down and talk.
Anytime.
I have some concerns too, but I think first of all, those questions should have been asked in public safety first. And I always ask, are there questions? And I didn't hear any of those questions at all. The fact of the matter is there's a great number of, a lot amount of overtime going on, but we have 11 people down, 9 people down, and we have 9 salaries not being paid. So there's another side to this too, besides overtime, because the people working now are eating that up in overtime, but we're also paying people, we also got 9 salaries that we're not paying for either. So there's a difference. Yeah, am I correct or not correct?
Oh, we're not paying for 4 salaries. So we have 5 off on workman's comp, which is, we get some of that, our paying full salary.
Yeah, we receive 66 2/3% back for those 5 people, but the other 4 you are completely correct on.
Okay, so there is another side to this. So it looks bad across the board, especially when you have that much overtime. And that's why it's very important that we get these people hired. And that's why this list and everything is very important, because what's your number of people that you allow on your fire department? 49. Even when we get ready to negotiate, we can't negotiate that number down until the next contract. So, and then where would you cut? So, and I don't think the answer is to let Riverside do our service. I just don't. I've seen the quality of service between the fire department, KQ Fire Department, and other services. And if I would have a medical emergency, and I tell my wife, call KQ Fire Department, I'd rather for them to be there than somebody else, and that's my belief.
Okay, thank you for the comments, Alderman. An issue that's on everyone's radar, and we'll continue to address it. Any other comments regarding the financial statement review?
I forgot a page. I was just going to go over quickly, Chairman, if you don't mind, page 16. This is the cash list that we talk about. I'm not going to drone on, but you know that the increases we've had with this year, or in the month of July, of course, would have been property taxes, would have hugely been the effect. We had not paid out the wire yet for police and fire we transferred that from my funds, so that had not been paid, so that balance is higher. And then we will start adding the ARPA money to this list starting in the month of August. So I just wanted to be transparent about that, and that's when that'll be added. So thank you. I apologize for forgetting that.
Any other questions about the financial statements? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Old business, the only item we have under old business is the ARP fund use. We've continued to have conversations about those funds in all the committee meetings and then the committee of the whole. And there's been recently, the addition is the website up and running now for people to submit information. That way it is. So there's that venue as well where people can submit information or requests or proposals. And Mayor, you're providing you're compilating all the requests that we're getting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so right now, the website has been up and running for probably a couple weeks now. I would say there's, I don't have the exact number off me, but I'd say there's been at least over 100 inquiries have been sent in that way. So David in my office is compiling that, and at the committee of whole, we should have some type of Excel spreadsheet that kind of talks about what's come in through the public and kind of rank where the priorities have been coming in from them. So. And then we've got an individual sheet with everything that they've put on there, so we'll put that in everybody's book on the fourth Monday of this month.
So that's related to the process. Is there any specific discussion or questions that anyone would like to have now? We certainly have time to do that if anyone has things they'd like to talk about. I don't have anything particular at this point, but we do have it on the agenda if there's anything people want to share.
Was there any updates on the cameras?
No, I'm meeting with the guy on Wednesday. I said I was going to Wednesday, then we have another one the following week. And I just got a contact from more and we talk about that and try to get some idea on some estimate, rough estimate of what it costs to do.
Anything else?
I would like to add, Chairman, that I alluded to it earlier, that we are looking at options of where to basically house this ARPA money that we've received. We obviously know we want it separate. I did have a really intriguing conversation before I left on vacation with PNC because they would, of course, as you can imagine, adore if we left this money there. And they have some ideas of things we can do with it. Obviously, I have statutes to check. I have other ARPA information in this folder here that needs to be reviewed before I can even make a recommendation to the mayor and to you all about that. But it was intriguing to have that conversation with PNC. Obviously, that would be very easy for me from an operational standpoint for my department to have it be just another account underneath the umbrella, and then as money is needed to be spent on the programs or, and things of that sort, we could easily just do those things, transfer money to the general fund. It would be very seamless. But obviously, there's two other places I'm looking at that I would like to compare what we could do with that money and what the money could do for us at those places. So I am in that process. It got kind of waylaid with my time away, but it is on my radar.
Okay, thank you. Under new business, the only item we have is the police squad car purchase program. We talked about this briefly at Public Safety last week, and Chief, you have some more information for us?
Yeah, so I put together just a proposal. The first page is just one squad car, just so you can see what it costs to outfit, to buy a squad car at the state bid, the interior package and exterior package lights, and installation labor. So per car, it's $42,644. And that's a state bid price. We bought, the last cars we bought were $35,000, so these are a couple $1,000 cheaper because we're ordering them. If they were on the lot, they charge us more. So I've got two options. What I can do is one's for 3, one's for 4 squad cars. So let me kind of tell you where we're at with that. So right now, there's quite a few squad cars sitting in a lot there, but 5 of those are down. They're not running. One just blew the transmission the other day. It's $5,000 to put it back in. So we're just letting it sit and see how long the other cars can run. We got another one with the engine out. That's another $5,000. So we're just sitting using that one as parts. 2 have been surplus out, but we didn't get rid of them. So we're keeping them right now in the lot in case we need to operate them. So we're at a point where we ordered the new cars, and we were only able to get 1 in. And the other 2 have been on order now. We think they're going to come in. They're telling us sometime in January, but it could be earlier. So The 2 new ones that we haven't got yet are January. The equipment, the light bars and the interior equipment is, when we ordered that car, we ordered that stuff too, and they told us that they have it right away, but ended up being, that's 8 weeks, so that's 2 months out. So the squad car we got is just out here, just waiting. We got it marked and stickered up, but we're unable to use it for maybe another 6 weeks, it might be another 2 months. So that one's sitting there. Dealership, when we talked to them, they said that it's 26 to 30 weeks out to order these cars. So what I'd like to do is order cars so I can get them in early 2022. Because right now, we ran 2021 with no new squads until we get this new one in there. And these squads run with 150,000 miles on them. So generally what happens is, we take a squad, we run about 90,000 miles, then flip it over to the detective bureau, and then they run it until it gets maybe 150,000 miles. So of the 10 or 11 cars we have for detectives and other uses, 6 of those are 2010s or 2011. So we do run it a long time. We do 10 or 11 years in those cars. The problem right now is the cars that we are going to flip out to the detective bureau have higher miles than the cars that they're driving in there, because obviously COVID stalled this purchase, and 1 year, I think it was 2016 or 17, they didn't buy squads, so that just backed it up. So we're not going to be able to flip many cars out. We're just going to keep the best we have over there. So what I'd like to do is, this year we got 3, we haven't got them in, but I'd like to purchase 4 for 2022 and see if we can get them in early January, February, to flip these cars out right away so we can get some newer squads in there. The maintenance is just killing us. We just put $3,000 into a front end of a Dodge, 2014 Dodge, because the detective needed it, and he drove the car with the transmission out, so we needed another car, so we got that car fixed up. But that's kind of the situation we're in, to where if we don't buy them, we're just going to put a ton of maintenance in. So some of the major maintenance on some of these cars, we're just not going to fix them until we absolutely need to get it, and just let it sit there. And especially engines. The last engine took, I think it was 3 months to get it installed and put in. Just some of that had to do with COVID too. But if we had 4 in 2022, then we could just go back, I think 3 cars a year then after that, so we kind of get caught up and then flip out as many old detective cars as we can, and then surplus all the other cars that we're not going to use. Like I said, right now we're holding 2 back that we surplused early this year, and we just kept them because we might have to use some of them, the parts, or return them to service. We can't get any cars because it is getting that low where we're not good enough squad cars to go out. Especially if we crash one or something else, which you just can't get. We can't buy a squad car off the parking lot or anywhere else because it's made for the police, and it's all cleaned out, it's bench seats and everything else. And so that's kind of where we're in with these squads. We talked to a local agency who was running Explorers, and they do have some equipment that they think that they can get to us, so we can maybe get this car outfitted and even another one in there. We haven't gone over there to check it out and see if it all fits, but if we can, the installer who took it out of that department's cars is going to reinstall it into ours and see what we can get out of it. But we definitely know some equipment will fit and go back in, so we might be getting equipment than we originally thought. So that's kind of the situation we're in. I know we talked about, they originally planned 4 cars a year, but obviously we moved up to these Explorers, and I think we're going to get more mileage out of them than the other cars. So I think if we do 3, then we're still going to be short. If we do 4, then we're going to get enough cars where we can get better squad cars than we can do. And my plan would be to talk to dealership and order so that these cars come in January, February, so for next year's. I don't think we're going to need them before that, or I don't think we're going to get them before that.
Thank you, Chairman. We did talk about this in public safety, and we felt like since right now it takes so long to get squad car, it would be to our advantage to go out and order these cars. Out of the 4 cars, I don't think we should order less than 4. My question would be, the cars, the 2 cars we're going to order now, is the equipment already ordered for those cars?
That equipment we ordered just to get.
So that equipment would be in by the same time the other?
Yeah, we think so. It should be, it's coming from Federal Signal to Rail Herons, and it just depends on when they produce it, when we can get it. It's all, because there's such a demand and all this stuff right now, because everybody's trying to do squad cars. It's just crazy. We talked to the county sheriff's department in Bradley. They're out in Nebraska buying cars, trying to get squad cars. The squad cars we were supposed to get went to Florida, so that's where stuff's at. You just can't get anything.
And this passed out of Public Safety Committee, 6-0. There was no, with one person being absent. So this is highly on our list of priority to get this done. So we would recommend that basically, I would make a motion that we I guess a question, but I would make a motion that we forward this to the City Council for full approval.
For 4, Carl? For 4 squad cars?
If the amount, I'll take them out just in case. There won't be any question. 170,576.
All right, there's a motion and a second to purchase 4. Alderwoman Johnson, do you have a question?
I do, and I'm sorry, I should remember this. These 4 are on top of the 3 from this year, but we only have 1 from this year and 2 of them.
That's correct.
So we're 7 total.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on this?
So we didn't get the 3?
We ordered 3, and the dealership only had 1. It's the state, there's only basically one place in Illinois we get them from because it's a state bid price, and they had 3 cars. 2 of them were hybrids, and this one was a car like we normally drive. We didn't want the hybrids because we didn't know how they operate yet at police level, and they were a little more expensive, so we just got the 1 car. And then the dealership told us to get the next 2 would probably take 26 to 30 weeks. Just depends on how the factories kick them out. He said, yeah, they're still coming. And they may come in November or December. They just didn't know. But they said the average has been, 26 to 30 weeks. And it might speed up a little bit. It might go back with the COVID with Ford. I just don't know.
So I thought we knew what we were getting. So did something change with the orders, whether they were hybrid and we didn't know they were hybrid?
No, we didn't. We called the dealership up. So what happened was maybe 4 weeks before we ordered the cars, the dealership had 186 squad cars. When we called them up to get them, they had 3 left that they offered us. And they won't hold them for you because they're selling cars that quick. So they only had 1 white car. We said, we'll take it. So, and the other 2 were hybrids. So we said we won't take those.
I think at the time you ordered the 3 cars, we thought the dealer had all 3 cars in lot.
We did too, yeah.
Yeah, so, but when we got approval for the cars and made contact with the dealer, they only had 1 left that we could be used. So that was the confusion right there. And so you had to order one you wanted. That's what he's talked about, so.
Yeah, I think the process when the chief talked to me is, like he said, these 2 other cars may not be coming to the beginning of 2022 now, and we know we were going to be allocating for cars in 2022. The thought was, instead of waiting and then find out we're not going to get them till next fall, let's just order them now, hoping that they come sometime in the next 5 to 6 months in 2022. That's our thought process behind it, because it doesn't look like cars are getting any sooner, so. Anyway, that's the public too.
Anyone else have questions?
And this money is allocated out of capital.
Correct.
So this has all been part of the capital. This is what the council had approved for on the next 3-year basis.
Motion and a second. Okay, I'll do roll call. Alderman O'Brien, aye. Alderman Ozinga. Aye. Alderman Marzak.
Aye.
Alderwoman Lewis? Alderwoman Johnson? Alderman Brown? Okay, motion passes, will be recommended to the council at our next meeting. Thank you, Chief. Next item is comptroller updates, and there's just one item there. It's regarding the audit.
Yes, so Alderman Brown asked me if we had an audit book tonight. I said not yet. Well, you should have one at the next meeting to go over. I don't know if we'll do a formal presentation that night or not, but definitely should have something in your hands. And then we are well underway with the fiscal 21 audit. Many papers have already been turned over. We should have an auditor even on site by the end of the week, so good progress with that.
Great. I liked your comment there, Alderman Brown, wondering if those were the audit books. That's optimism. That's good. Well, thank you, Comptroller. Now on to Alderman questions or concerns. Anyone have anything they want to share here? We already talked about the overtime issue. Alderman Brown?
I would like to thank the Budget Committee for putting this on the agenda to forward to City Council, because I think those cars are very important. And we already approved the fire replenish for that. So I want to thank the Budget Committee for putting these things on the agenda to get them move forward.
You're welcome. Anyone else have comments or questions? No. Seeing none, we don't need an executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Alderman Brown, second by Alderman Marzak. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign? Okay. Thank you. We are adjourned.